Asteroid Day? What the heck? I didn't know the 30th of June was Asteroid Day. What is this all about?
Welcome back to Asteroid Day 2017, and I'm joined on Skype by the bad astronomer himself, Phil Plait. How are you? How's
Oh, what a handsome fella he is.
Hi, it looks like it's going pretty well. We haven't been hit yet.
We haven't been hit yet, huh? He obviously hasn't played my game, Rock and Roll.
But I don't think people understand exactly what these things represent. The threat,
Yeah.
not only that they represent,
They're scary.
but a small asteroid impact can cause a lot of damage.
No
We need to
kidding.
find them, we need to
What about when you
characterize
got
them, we need to visit
literally
them with spacecraft
dozens or
so we
hundreds
understand
of
them better.
asteroids on the
Not
screen
only
at
so that we
once?
can prevent an impact, but also so that we can learn about them and perhaps use them. If they have water on
Ooh,
them,
use
if they
them.
have metals, for example, like iron, titanium, things that we can use.
Ooh.
We can visit them with our spacecraft and then use them as resources to help explore the solar system.
There we go, guys. Fly a spacecraft into space, find asteroids, keep them from hitting Earth, and here we go, guys. Rock and Roll, which I've just added full controller support for as well. So now you can use a mouse and keyboard or a Xbox controller. Let's go ahead and launch this game. I have a few things I want to show you about my game, even at this early access period before launch. So if you look here, guys, in the middle of my screen is my spaceship. And you see I am rotating my ship to the right. And look at how slow I am rotating in one position. One thing to keep in mind with my game is I purposely designed the game to keep people from staying in a stationary position and just blasting rocks from a safe point. I really wanted to slow you down if you took the safe approach. I wanted to reward risk versus reward type of gameplay. So notice here that if you move, like I'm moving down here, I'm rotating around at about twice the speed. And if you move faster, you rotate faster. And that is one of the key aspects of the design when I created this game. Now here I used my spiral attack because I was in trouble there and wasn't able to maneuver out of the way. So I used one of my spirals. I have 4 left. So one thing you also want to do when you play my game Rock and Roll here is rather than just blasting all the biggest rocks and going at it, you really want to try to focus on one rock at a time. Notice here that I am taking my ship and trying to clean up all the smaller asteroid chunks that fell from the first asteroid that I shot. And here, instead of actually shooting the 2 big rocks right above me, I'm going to go try to take out again the remaining smaller chunks from the first asteroid that I destroyed. Otherwise, in this game, you can wind up with a screen of literally hundreds of asteroids flying everywhere, and it can make it really, really hard to survive when that happens. Now here, I picked up a power-up randomizer. It's a random power-up. It looks like a question mark on the screen. And what it does is it picks one of the power-ups that you can collect on the screen. This happens to be the cannonball, and as you can see that right below the rock, it flashing cannonball launch. This is a power-up that sends your ship flying through space, crashing through asteroids, no risk of any damage done to your ship. As you can see, I am busting up the asteroids and scoring a lot of points, but the time is just about to run out and my ship will slow down from the 400 speed that it was at. And now I'm at a more regular speed, 30, 40, 50 on my ship. Now you can always see how much time you have left in any power-up up in the upper right-hand corner. There I did another spiral attack. And the problem with that power-up on the cannonball is it's a lot of fun, and you score a lot of points quickly and clear a lot of rocks out quickly, but you don't have a lot of control. So where I was taking my time and trying to take one asteroid out at a time, kind of hard to do with something like the cannonball power-up. Now, because there is a bonus in my game for clearing out all the asteroids, the faster you do it at the end of each level, something like the cannonball is worth taking because you can save a lot of time on clearing out a screen. But you do wind up with a lot of mess, as I do here. A lot of small rocks are flying around the screen. And these flashing little rocks are resources that you can gather as well, kind of like that blue flashing item, but it does disappear. So if you don't pick them up within, I think, 15 to 20 seconds, they will vanish on you. And resources are really going to be good because They either give you more points if you survive the wave or the level. If you clear out all the asteroids, you get to either sell those resources for score points, or you can turn around and sell them for cash. And with cash, you'll be able to buy ship upgrades during your game. Things like rotating speed and fire rate can be increased at a cost. So here we go, guys. We are just... Oh no, there is a kamikaze space worm. It is homing in on me. Just like a creeper in Minecraft that chases you down, homes in on you, and tries to blow up. That's exactly what the space worm does. But I was able to avoid it because it does move really fast, and shoot it before it actually blew up near me and killed me. One thing that can be really good against those kamikaze space worms, if you don't have time to react, move away, and shoot them, is to use one of your spi-roll attacks if you have any. So always good to save the spi-roll attacks. There, you see I just got 1,000 points for having a close call. Barely avoided a collision with a rock. And again, risk versus reward. If you are flying around and taking that risk, and you barely avoid death but survive, you will get that close call 1,000-point bonus. So something to take consideration of as you play the game and you're looking at maybe beating a friend's high score or beating your own high score or whatever. Now I only have one life left here, as you see, but the game is pretty challenging right now, and this is exactly kind of how I wanted it. I wanted real inertia to be involved with your spaceship. I didn't want you to be able to brake on a dime in outer space, and I wanted, to really try to create a risk versus reward kind of a space game here. Now here, we're into our next game here, and you see me starting out, again, trying to take out one rock at a time, collecting resources to get bonus points if I actually clear this level of asteroids. And you see here, bouncer shots. That's BS. It looks like BS on your screen. Another really good power-up, and what this power-up does is if you collect it, instead of having a really short range with your missiles, you'll see that my missiles not only fire at a little faster rate, but mainly they have an endless range, and they'll bounce off the edge of the screen and continue to bounce until they hit something. So really effective power-up that you can get. You can see the power-up up in the upper right-hand corner is counting down though. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Another thing you keep hearing in the game is the game's actually saying crumble. You'll hear my voice in the game saying things like crumble, or telling you watch out, or oh no, or whatever. I react to your game, to your gameplay as you play it, which I hope gives it a nice personal touch. A lot of the resources that you gather do look kind of gray like the asteroids themselves. Some of them are a little bit different colored, but I really do think that my game is going to appeal to those people out there that like these kind of, action games where you always got to keep on a move. You got to dodge things coming at you from all over the place. And right there, you heard me react, and it was a close call because I did survive. Space worm there, you saw I didn't have a lot of time to react, so I did use one of my spi-roll attacks to take that worm out, thankfully before he took me out. Close call there as I blast asteroids right before they hit the nose of my ship. And these are the kind of close calls and elements of my game that I think are, give my game some kind of addicting quality and make you want to play it again and again. Now, one thing I haven't really talked about yet is the music for the background that I used for my game. And it's kind of addictive music that I really like. When I was creating my game and developing this game, I wanted some kind of a rock and roll type sound and music for the background, and I was lucky enough to find over on incompetech.com some Creative Commons music that I was allowed to put into my game without having to pay for and only needing to credit the where the music is coming from. So I want to thank Kevin MacLeod for making a great track that I think works great for my game. And when I saw the name of it, I knew as long as it sounded pretty good, that it had to be the perfect song for my game. The name of the track is called Sax Rock and Roll. I mean, how much more fitting could you get? People on my YouTube channel call me Zax all the time for Zaxter. And then rock and roll is the name of my game. So Sax Rock and Roll really sounded like a perfect name for a track to my game, and I happen to think that it sounds pretty good for the type of gameplay that you're doing in this game. So great find there. Here you see I picked up a rapid fire power-up, and you can see it's about to run out in the upper right, but this power-up allows you to shoot at like double the rate and can definitely be very effective when you pick that up. There, I got my thrust going a little bit too fast and crashed into a rock, ended my last life. So let's go ahead and start again here with a new game. Now, another aspect of my game that I created that I really like right now at this early stage is something I thought of to really increase the risk and make you feel a threat every time you blast a rock. I really wanted to create something that could scare you with any rock that you blasted. And so what I created is that whole crumble event. And every time a rock crumbles, you will hear me say crumble out loud. And what that means is that when you shoot a rock, it could crumble into a bunch of teeny little fragments that each one could pose a considerable threat to your ship. Just like right there, you see that a medium-sized asteroid broke apart into probably 10, 12, 15 little chunks, and they come spiraling out at you. Each one moves faster than the original asteroid you shot. The bigger the rock that you shoot on the screen, the more fragments it can break down into. Now, I've also caused a increased risk of crumbling the more you advance in level and the higher level that you select from the initial starting screen. So that is one thing that I really like about my game. I think that the crumble effect in my game is pretty nice. I hope you guys, if you decide to buy my game or play my game, will like this element of my game as well. Now, I have decided to launch my first game on Steam, which is this game, in early access. I figured it would be a good idea to make sure that with my first game, everybody that buys it does have, a good experience with my game. Things are running smoothly for them. And if they have any feedback or suggestions or problems, that I have time to, fix those problems or make my game better during a early access period of what I think might be 3 to 6 months. Now, since this is my first game, it could take me longer, or some of the features that I plan on adding may not make it, or my game might change or grow quite a bit during the early access period based on the feedback and recommendations and suggestions and everything that I get from my customers on Steam. So I'm really nervous and excited both at the same time for this game. Which brings me to a little story I want to talk about with Rock and Roll here. Now, I know that, it hasn't yet released on Steam. At the time that I'm making this video, I still have almost 2 weeks until it officially launches in early access on Steam. But I want to say this game, making it onto Steam, and potentially being seen by hundreds or thousands or even millions of people around the world, is already a dream come true. My biggest fear is that, it'll only sell a couple of copies. But even if that happens, it's already a dream come true, and let me explain to you why. Back when I was a kid, right now I'm in my mid-40s, and so I've been a gamer all my life. And I really loved games back as a kid when I was like 8, 10 years old, back in the early 1980s. And you see another rock just crumbled as I play the game. But one of my favorite games of all time back when I was a young kid was the arcade game Asteroids. And I played in the arcades all the time because we didn't have a home computer back then, and my parents couldn't even afford like a console. The Atari 2600 was like the new big thing back in the early 1980s, and only really the luckiest kids in my neighborhood had an Atari 2600. But back in those days, I have no idea how many rolls of quarters and how many total quarters I pumped into those Asteroid arcade machines. I know we had a small arcade about a mile from my house where I lived, and I used to walk there even if I only had 4 or 5 quarters. And pretty much every day, that I walked over to that arcade, every quarter went into Asteroids because I really, really liked the old Asteroids game back in those days. A couple of years later, when I got my first home computer from my grandparents, They bought me a home computer so I could kind of learn something and not just play games. That was kind of their idea. And it was much like the Commodore 64, and later I did upgrade to the Commodore 64. But with that old Atari 400, I would buy those magazines, you know, in the store where you could type in your own games. You know, people would publish real small games where you had a simple task or whatever. And I would type those games in. And this is going to be pretty funny, I think, to anybody that knows even the basics of coding. Well, when I typed those magazines in back in those days, a lot of the programs that you would type in would have like half the code would be REM statements, REM. And anybody that knows anything about coding in BASIC knows that a REM statement is just a remark. It's a remark to either leave a note to yourself about what's going on in the game, or, you know, how the game's running, or to remind yourself to add something later, whatever. But back in those days when games were published into magazines, the REM statements and the remark statements would really be used, I believe, so the developer of that particular little game could explain to anybody reading the magazine or typing in that game what that part of the code was doing. So, for example, you might have 6 or 8 lines of remark statements kind of explaining what the next 2 lines of actual code did. But the computer didn't recognize the REM statements or anything after REM at all. A computer would just skip right over those statements and get to the actual code to process the code. So here you see the game automatically selling the resources that I picked up during the level and giving me points. And again, this is going to be changing where you're going to have a choice in the game of selling each resource for either points or cash, and cash will be able to be used to upgrade your ship. So it'll be a choice, and you'll have a lot of control in how your game goes. But back to my story about, you know, coding on that old Atari 400 and typing in those magazines with all those remark statements. Well, back in those days, I mean, I was only 9 or 10 years old when I was typing in these games, and the only thing I really understood about what I was typing in was those REM statements, because it would say, you know, REM, like a remark, turn the screen black and do this, or, you know, make the screen flash and say hello. Whatever that part of the code was doing, there would be a remark kind of explaining what it did and how it worked, for example. So not long after I got that computer, I had a friend come over and spend the night with me, and he liked asteroids as well, and we decided that we were going to make our own asteroids game on that Atari 400. And so he spent the night with me. We stayed up like all night long, and the only code that I understood was the remark statements, but I didn't know that the computer would look completely over them and that they actually did nothing in the computer's eyes. So we ended up typing in probably 200-300 lines of nothing but remark statements in this program. No actual code, because I didn't know any kind of actual code even for the basic language back then. So we were filling this code, if you would, full of remark statements of all our wildest dreams of our next great asteroids game. You know, things like make the screen black and make stars look great, and, you know, make the spaceship, if you push this happens. And, you know, we had all kinds of remarks of everything we wanted to happen in our game, and we were so excited to be making our game, and we really felt like it would do something. And after spending hours putting our hearts into nothing but REM statements, I still remember as the morning hours closed in on us, typing in run after typing in all those lines of code, and maybe not expecting the game to be perfect, but expecting at least something to happen. And when I typed in run, R-U-N, for, you know, to launch my game the first time, I simply got back a ready statement. And I still remember to this day, 35 years later, how my heart sank that the computer did not do a darn thing when I typed in run. And it was really a hard first lesson in coding, and the fact that REM statements don't do anything as far as the computer's concerned. And like I say, that was a really tough lesson, but I think looking back at it now, it was really funny. But that's kind of what I want to get to, guys. back in those days when I was a kid, I later got a Commodore 64, and I did start learning how to actual code some things, and I would get an idea for a game, and I would start it, and I would never really finish anything that I started. It was just a whole bunch of wild ideas for games, and I would start on it, and then I would get stuck and not know how to, finish it, or how to get past a certain problem, or do what I wanted, and I would give up. Now here I am many years later, kind of self-learning how to make games again. And this is my first game on Steam, my first published game. And what do you know? It is an Asteroids kind of a game. My own take on the Asteroids Arcade Classic. So when I say that this game is a dream come true already, that's exactly what I mean. Rock and Roll has already achieved my wildest dreams when I was 10 years old back in the early 1980s, when I sat up all night long putting my dreams into nothing but REM statements on that old Atari 400 and getting nothing but a ready. I think if I could see myself now, back when I was a kid, I'd be proud of myself. Hopefully you guys are happy with the end result as well, and I look forward to reading my customers' responses and feedback. And I really hope that you guys, should you decide to purchase Rock and Roll on Steam when it launches on July 14th, that you guys enjoy the game half as much as I enjoyed creating it. This has been Zaxtor99. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Have a great day.